So you've got a new metal roof that needs utilities added to it. But hey, who wants to risk damaging your roofing panels with corrosion-causing wood, steel, or concrete blocks? Not to mention void your warranty. Wouldn't it be great to find a mounting method that gives you a secure attachment without issues or a high price tag? Join us today as Shawn and John take an in-depth look at the GRipperFix utility mounting system and how perfectly it pairs with some common metal roofing applications. The floor is yours, Shawn.
Thanks, Pat. I'd like to introduce myself, although if you've been watching these videos lately, you know who I am and you probably know who this guy next to me is. Yep. But I'm Shawn Haddock with S5. I don't really have a specific title. My main deal at S5 is getting out in the field, working with contractors, doing product training. I'm in charge of our product support. And so with that, I'll take it over to John.
Hi everybody, you've probably seen me before as well. I'm John. I do R&D here at S5. What are we talking about today, Shawn?
We talk a lot about solar attachments and snow retention and how to attach those things to your metal roofing without doing any harm to your roof. And today, you know, I want to jump into utility attachments. It's something that we always say you can use our products for. And we've come out with some specific products to do just that, because we get a lot of questions. Well, how do we use your clamps to do that? Do we use angle iron? Do we use unistrut? What do we use? Okay. And so today we're going to introduce the GRipperFix system and its components and go from there.
What are we going to be using this system for? What are we going to be installing today?
Well, today we're going to do a number of installations. We're going to show the users how to install an HVAC unit, how to install conduit and piping, as well as a satellite dish attachment.
What's some common ways that people are doing this now? Like on metal roof, what do you see out there on the field?
You know, I've seen a lot of things out there. One is wood dunnage.
Kind of like this?
Yeah, which seems, you know, it's economical. It shouldn't do any damage, right?
Yeah, most things are built out of wood, right? Why wouldn't you want to use wood on your metal roof?
The tannins that they treat wood with actually corrode your metal roof. The other thing about it is you're trapping moisture on that roof. So you're introducing a place to really ruin your coatings and your roof.
It's kind of like a big sponge sitting on your roof that can hold moisture. What's some other things you've seen out there?
You know, other things I've seen is they just run a screw into the roof.
Oh, wow.
Which you dang sure don't want to do. You can violate thermal movement, you're creating a hole, just a bad idea in general.
See, I'll tell you one that I've seen quite a bit lately. It's our good old friend, the cinder block.
Yes, the good old cinder block. I mean, you see satellite dishes that get pretty big up there on roofs. I mean, as many as 8 or 10 of those things.
So they're using these cinder blocks to actually weigh down these satellites and ballast, they call them ballast systems, to hold them down. Why would you use a cinder block instead of attaching to the roof with like a tested method? I mean, it seems crazy to lug 5 or 6 of these guys up the ladder to get on the roof when you could throw these in a backpack and do the same thing.
Exactly. So let's jump into what we're talking about today and what we're going to show you. Satellite dishes seems to me like a great place to start. So let's grab our cinder blocks and head up on the roof.
All right. So here we're going to demonstrate attaching a satellite dish base to a double fold standing seam metal roof. In this video we're going to be using our GRipperFix utility system. The 27-inch variation is mostly used for satellite dishes and other utility. We've got the appropriate clamp for this roof, which happens to be the S5V Mini, the appropriate tab, which is the S5 CF tab, some of our M8 hardware, and then 2 of these GRipperFix struts that have been cut down to 20 inches.
So John, can you explain to me a little more? You said the appropriate tab. Do we have multiple tabs?
Yeah, so we have a couple different tabs. We have the CF tab, which stands for concealed fix. So all the CF tabs are going to attach to any of the existing S5 clamps or brackets. We also offer an EF tab, and the EF tab has 2 punch holes with an EPDM sealant that's allowed for a direct attach to exposed fastened roofs. So those will attach with screws rather than the S5 clamp.
Great. So for today, we're using a standing seam roof, so we're going to use the CF tab.
Yep, the CF tab, and it's going to be flipped in this direction. We'll cover that when we're installing it. And then the appropriate clamp, which in this application could be an S5V.
John, let's talk about the tools we're going to use.
Yeah.
What I have here is a standard impact. Could be a screw gun. Pretty basic. Of course, we're going to need a tape measure. And whenever you have a tape measure, you generally need a marker. I have a 13mm socket and adapter for the screw gun or the impact, which fits our bolt perfectly. The Torx tip that comes in every box with S5 clamps to tighten down my set screws. And just in case I want it, I've got a 13mm open end wrench. So with that being said, we're ready to install. So I'm going to measure up from my eave or any reference point you want to measure from when you're on your roof. You might be in the middle of the roof or up high, but pick a reference point. And I'm going to go ahead and just put this one down here around 5 inches is where we'll set our first clamp. 2 marks at 5 inches. And now we're ready to go ahead and set our clamps in place. So I'll grab my impact and my Torx tip. Clamp, we've already pre-threaded the set screw into this clamp. I will point out on this profile, it's a double fold, so you've got a fold there, and this clamp has a lip here that you basically want to be on that side of the fold. Another tool I'd like to point out that can be pretty handy is an extension. This is a fancy extension. It's an angle driver as well. Generally, just an extension to get you out a little bit from the clamp so that you can get down at that angle when you're tightening down your set screws.
We're going to go ahead and line our clamp up with that mark, engaging the hook on the fold side of the roof. Put in our T30 drive. We'll go ahead and snug that guy down.
So one thing I'd like to point out there, John, we have it on all of our videos always, that the most important thing about tightening down an S5 clamp is being sure you achieve or exceed torque so that you're getting the right holding strength.
Yeah. So it's a good idea periodically throughout the job to go ahead and check your work with the dial indicating torque wrench. Click. Once you've got your first clamp installed, you can go and come over to the next seam. Using your knuckle driver, you can find your mark. Tighten your clamp down.
What you want is ultimately for this strut to be laying flat on your panel. That gives it some downward support. And you want to decide if you want to hide your clamps or if you want them to be visible. I'm going to go ahead and hide them, so I'm going to install this. It just slides right on in. It's a little awkward when you're looking at a camera, but I'll slide my first one on. Go ahead and slide my second one on. And then we'll place it up here on the roof. From there, it's pretty simple. You grab your M8 bolt.
Hand thread them in. I got it. Thread your M8 bolts in.
You don't want to get them too tight at this process, because the next thing we're going to do is once we got it in there, we'll make sure that we're aligned with our strut where we want it, nice and centered up on the roof panels. Something else I want to point out is there's some adjustability here. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this down, but if for some reason we were to put our next clamps in the wrong place just a little bit, we've got some adjustability to move it. The other thing is I could adjust it side to side, so I'm going to center it up nice and centered. We're going to go ahead and just snug these down by hand. They will try to move on you a little bit as you tighten them down, so by starting them by hand, we can keep it in place where we want it, snug up against that clamp. And then as we tighten down the rest of our brackets, then we'll tighten everything at the end.
So next up, just like installing the front strut, you're going to grab your rear strut, install your tabs, go ahead and get your clamps ready to install, and get it ready to go on the roof. So there's really two different ways to do this. You can either use a tape measure, know what your on center is for your bolt pattern, or you can use what you're attaching as kind of like a jig, or go ahead and install it now onto each of the struts and then tighten the clamps down later.
Which, me being who I am, that's my preference. Get it up there, get it fitted, then tighten everything down. So our next step is to go ahead and install this and get it loose fit like I was mentioning. There's two ways you can do this. Within this gripper strut, there is a channel that I can slide the nut in and it'll hold it in place while I tighten down my bolt, or I can go ahead and slide the bolt in so that I've got that stud sticking up. I prefer to do it this way because then I can easily slide it. When you've got that nut in there, then you kind of got to fish it across. So I'll go ahead and get these slid in. Once I do, then John can start loading that satellite bracket into place.
Good deal.
So from there, we'll go ahead and loose fit our nuts into place. So I think I've got this pretty centered, but once you've got these in place, you kind of got to jiggle it to move it a little bit. So you want to start with it pretty much centered where you want it. At this point, we can go ahead and snug these down because this is our spacing that we're worried about. We want to make sure our strut is even side to side. And we can go ahead and
Looks pretty good.
snug it down. So at this point, everything's pretty loose fit. The clamps are not even tightened on the back yet. We put the clamp to the back, and the reason we did that is so that we could easily get to the set screw, which over here it's going to be all right, but on this side it'd be a little tough with this bracket in place. So if you wanted to conceal your clamps like we did on the bottom row, you would have to measure for your spacing and go ahead and put your clamps in place. So now we can go ahead and grab our torch tip and tighten her down. So with our set screws tight, we'll go ahead now and tighten down the rest of our bolts and we can mount our dish.
And with the GRipperFix using the S5 clamps, it does not penetrate the roof in any way. It does not void the warranty. It doesn't damage the roof in any way. And each one of these clamps has an engineered, tested holding strength. So you know this thing's going to stay put. Well, it turns out that's how easy it is to put a satellite dish on a standing seam metal roof.
It is, and I'd probably say we saved quite a bit of time.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
imagine lugging them cinder blocks all the way up the roof.
Yeah.
And all that components that you got to put together to
Oh,
mount
yeah.
a satellite dish.
It's a lot of weight. And a lot of times, by the time you buy those cinder blocks and those ballast systems, they cost more than a backpack full of this S5 stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. So John, what do you think we should do with these cinder blocks now?
I guess I'll just take them home and go build a wall or something, you know?
You know what? I wonder if we could use them so that I could stand up and be just as tall as you.
Yeah, I don't think it'll help.
That's going to do it for us this time, but we've still got lots more to cover. Join us next time to see how well GRipperFix pairs with HVAC installs as well as pipe and conduit. Hit subscribe and click the bell to find out as soon as our next installment releases. Thanks for joining us.